Hello, I'm Steven.
And I'm Aaron.
And we've just seen Mission
Mission
Impossible,
Impossible,
The
The
Final
Final
Reckoning,
Reckoning.
new film that's out in theaters right now, starring Tom Cruise, Haley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and Palm Clementieff, and it is directed by Christopher McQuarrie. So, continuing where the last movie left off, a super AI is out there right now threatening the world, and humanity's future rests in the hands of Rain Man's brother. So, one of the things I've been very happy to see as of late is the resurgence of the 3 hour movie. Beau is Afraid, Babylon, The Brutalist, The Batman, RRR, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Oppenheimer are recent examples. I feel a movie should be as long as it needs to be.
Keyword is needs here.
Yes. But when I found out that this film was 3 hours long, it gave me pause. That just seemed needless. So I ask you, does this movie justify its 3 hour runtime?
No, not even close. I think you could probably strip a solid 30 minutes out of this movie and
It would be all the better for it.
you would solve pretty much every problem I have with this.
For the first hour of this thing, I did not like this at all.
Yeah, it's honestly the first hour is almost excruciating.
Yeah.
Because it almost feels like a giant previously on.
Yeah, it does.
Because they just rehash the last movie. I guess because it came out a few years ago, and that one got sort of a mixed reception as well. I guess they figured some people would have forgotten what the plot was, because honestly, it is a little convoluted. But there's so much exposition and rehashing and recounting things that happened, and straight up flashbacks that are just. They almost show full scenes from the previous movie.
Yes, and not just flashbacks to the previous movie, flashbacks to scenes that happened only 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's extremely weird. It's like, yeah, I've been watching. I was paying attention. I know what this character said to that character literally 5-10 minutes ago. So,
Did they not have faith that their audience might rewatch the previous film before they see it?
we didn't, and
Yeah.
I felt like I knew what was going on. I remembered what happened in the last one. I didn't need all of the exposition and flashbacks to the previous one.
Yeah, the flashbacks just confused things to me because I was forgetting which scenes were flashbacks to the previous film and which were like new scenes for this one.
Yeah, honestly, that all it does is just confuse the whole thing. Because, like you said, it got to a point where it's like, I don't remember if this was from the last movie or if this is like something new in this one. And then also there's times when scenes are played out of sequence and they're played like concurrently, so you don't know like what's going on with the timeline or the chain of events.
Yeah, there were a number of like scenes that they cut to of Ving Rhames in a hospital bed, and I just could not remember was that the last one or is it this one? It was so perplexing.
Some of the scenes feel like they're way out of order. And it's kind of interesting because I actually watched an interview with the director, Christopher McQuarrie, recently, where he talked about the first edit of the movie, how it was more non-linear, I guess, and they kind of changed it to play more in sequence, and I'm just like, where? Because the first hour of this movie is a freaking mess.
Yeah. My only issue really with Dead Reckoning was that the setup for the film, the expositional scenes, takes like forever, but it's short compared to this one. And when that movie gets going, and then it completely makes up for it.
Yeah, the first hour of this, it's kind of like that first 20 or so minutes of Dead Reckoning, but stretched out to an hour. It's like a really like prolonged and extended first act to set up the movie and what the movie's actually about, but so much of it is just stuff from the previous one.
The last time we watched a movie with over an hour of setup before the plot started to kick in was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
And so much of it is repetitive too, because it seems like every other scene somebody is talking about how the entity, that you can't do this because that's what the entity wants you to do. Or we have to stop the entity because it's going to cause World War III. It's like this character says that, and then the next scene we have this character saying the exact same thing.
Yes, there are a ton of scenes in that first hour of them repeating the same thing over again. The fate of the universe lies in your hands, Ethan. If you don't succeed, millions of people are going to die. Billions of people are at stake, Ethan. That's why the fate of the universe is at your hands.
There's also like a weird meta quality to the movie that I don't think really works because so much of this movie, because it's presumably the last one and it's kind of Tom Cruise's like last hurrah as this character, it feels like a tribute and homage to the 30 years of Mission Impossible history.
Yes.
And tribute to Tom Cruise the man, not Ethan Hunt the character.
Yes, because another thing that they keep doing is talking about 30 years ago in 1996, you did this, Ethan. Remember when you did this 30 years ago in 1996? These events happened 30 years ago in 1996.
Yeah.
They keep specifying 1996.
Yeah. There are some kind of fun tie-ins to previous Mission movies that I thought were actually pretty cool and fun and nice reveals to mysteries that we didn't have resolved before. But a lot of it just feels like blatant fan service. And in like a series that has never really bothered with that because it's never needed to, it feels so hokey and cheesy. And it just it's so out of place here.
It almost feels Saw-like, as in the movie Saw. This is the film series where there's at one point in the film they say, "Oh, remember that character who was standing in the corner 30 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's now back with a full-blown supporting role."
Yeah, and there's like relics or artifacts from the Mission Impossible series that turn up here too, and they give them like significance for some reason. It's like, oh, you remember that knife in that one scene from that one movie 20 years ago, 30 years ago? It's like, there it is.
The famous scene where you were dangling from the rope in the first one where you dropped that knife. Here it is. It's back. It has some sentimental value now.
Yeah, it's just laughable, and I don't know why they made decisions like that. And again, like Tom Cruise is the man. Like, the guy can do anything. He's probably the biggest and best action star we have or have ever had. But you don't have to blow the man's head up this much, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I understand. I appreciate what he does.
That's what Xenu's for.
But when you have so many characters constantly praising Ethan and hyping him up, like, you've risked your life so many times, and you've valued the life of your team at the peril of millions of others, and what you do is so important to the human race, and Ethan, we don't trust anybody but you, and you're gonna save the world. It stops feeling like we're talking about Ethan Hunt, the character, and we're just praising Tom Cruise, the actor, and it's like, stop.
Do you think it approaches the Weekend level egotism?
No. No, nothing can match that, I'm afraid. But it's funny because even like the opening credits, when they finally kick in, it's like a Tom Cruise production. Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I remember
like,
that.
That's so funny.
The first thing, it made me think of like Mr. Bean's Holiday, Willem Dafoe's character, Carson Clay.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of was Chuck Norris in Chuck Norris.
Karate Commandos. Carson Clay presents a Carson Clay production of the title starring Carson Clay.
Yeah, like we get it. Tom Cruise is awesome. Like, can we please progress with the story and move on with the plot?
Yeah, it's a series of Tom Cruise walking into a room and being briefed on the mission. It feels like the first hour of this movie is like mission negotiable.
Yeah, it really is. Like, every scene is him walking into a room and being explained what is going on in the plot, or him explaining to others what's going on in the plot and how they have to trust him.
However, Xenu bless him, after the first hour of this movie is done trudging along at a snail's pace, the second and third hour make up for it in a pretty satisfying way, a pretty mostly satisfying way.
Yeah, once like all the setup is finally completed, pretty much the rest of this movie is, I think, splendid.
Yeah.
From that point to the end, you know exactly when the movie kicks into another gear, and from that point on, like, you feel like you're in safe hands again, and like, so they suddenly remember how to make these movies.
Yeah, most of these movies, if not all of them, follow a similar formula where Ethan Hunt is briefed on the mission, and then there's like some action beats, and then they spend the middle of the film prepping for an infiltration mission, and then he executes it, and then the third act of the movie is the action climax that resolves everything. And this film is much like that, only the first hour is nothing but briefing after briefing after briefing.
Yeah.
But then the middle infiltration set piece was quite excellent, I thought. I was
with the The whole submarine section.
Yes, he has to dive to incredible depths to retrieve the MacGuffin out of a sunken submarine.
Yeah.
And the sequence is it's claustrophobic.
It's spectacular. It's nothing but tension constantly being ratcheted up. There's no dialogue.
No dialogue. It's claustrophobic. It's tense. It's suspenseful. It seems like it was all done practically.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I remember seeing stuff about him doing water training and like breath control and stuff like that. So I'm sure he did most of this inside of a large tank or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a great set. The interior, the exterior is clearly CGI, but the interior, it's like a big set on a gimbal, so they can rotate it.
Physics is a big part of it, which comes into like how they're able to craft clever and fun set pieces, because
that are also interesting to look at.
Yeah, like your perspective is always like out of whack because the water inside the sub is constantly shifting with how the sub is moving or rolling. So he's constantly like fighting physics and gravity to get to his destination, and it's great to watch. It's a lot of fun. It's really tense. It's why you go to these movies, and yeah, from that point on for the rest of the movie, it's great. The other thing that they do really well is how like there's always an element of time, like things have to be done.
Oh yeah, a ticking time bomb type thing.
Yeah, there's always a ticking clock element, like we have to get this done by this time or else this is going to happen. I think the stakes are actually really interesting, and I think some of the themes and ideas politically are also like really interesting as well, even though they're probably not as explored as they could be. Like the AI is the big bad in this one, and AI is pretty much fighting to take control over the world's nuclear arsenal.
Yeah, it's like Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Yeah, and once it has control of it, it's basically Ultron. Like he's gonna wipe out humanity because humanity is they're useless to a computer. They don't do anything but harm the planet, and they can't do anything good anyways.
Yeah, and it's of course a timely subject because AI is becoming so ridiculously advanced.
Yeah, and it like the whole thing is about algorithms and how it feeds misinformation and how it preys on people's fears, and
people don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah, and it divides people because they have no sense of reality. Reality is whatever the artificial intelligence deems it to be. I think that's like really interesting and like you said, timely. I wish they would delve into that a little bit more.
Yes, because they're not really explored. They're mostly just referenced. Like another thing they talk about is like there's like a death cult.
Yeah, there's a death cult around this artificial intelligence that wants to serve the artificial overlord.
And about the most we see from that is some like news snippets of these cult members being interviewed on like, I don't know, CNN or Fox.
Yeah, I think they're called the Children of the Atom, which is funny because it made me think of Fallout 3. Because there's a cult in that who basically worships the bomb, and they welcome like the nuclear annihilation. So stuff like that's really interesting and cool. There's messaging about how, if we just work together or if we try to understand each other a little better, maybe we can come to some common ground. Which, you could argue is a little flimsy and not really what is exactly at stake in real world politics these days, or what the problem is. But it's a fun concept that they explore. The stakes are really, really high, and the decisions like the world leaders have to make are also really interesting in how they're set up. It's like we have our nuclear arsenal that we have to hold on to as long as we can, and once everybody else loses theirs to the machine, they start having to make hard decisions without spoiling anything. It added to the tension and the drama.
This series consistently has had a villain problem. And it's so tragic that the bad guy to end all bad guys in Mission Impossible is this flimsy Timothy Olyphant mixed with Ray Wise hybrid who has none of the personality of either of those actors, and he's the most bland, boring son of a bitch imaginable.
Yeah, Gabriel, he wasn't a great villain in the previous one, and he continues to not be great in this one.
Did you even remember his name?
No,
No, neither did I.
no.
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that you probably don't remember any of the villains'
I
names.
honestly I couldn't tell you any of the villains' names. I don't think. I remember Philip Seymour Hoffman's villain probably more than any other one, but even him I don't remember his name.
That's because he was the only good one.
Yeah.
His name was Owen Davian, by the way.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3 is brilliant.
Gabriel's kind of the secondary villain, even though he's like the physical form that Ethan Hunt has to fight at the end of the day, but like the AI is the main villain.
In the previous film, Dead Reckoning, all I wanted, more than anything, was for the character of Paris to slit his throat and then say, I'm the captain now, and then be the villain, because Pom Klementieff as Paris in the previous film was the MVP for me. I thought she was insanely cool, and I thought she had presence, and she was formidable, and she had a great look, and she had charisma. She should have been the main villain. They bring her back in here, and they make her lame as shit. She doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I like her fine in the movie, but I wish they gave her a little bit more to do, or they retained some of her edge from the previous one.
This is the second time they've done that, because the villain in Rogue Nation, his name was Solomon Lane. The only reason I remember that is because I looked it up earlier.
Yeah.
He was actually okay. He was creepy, but
He's pretty good. He's probably the second best one in the series.
yeah, definitely. But then they brought him back in Dead Reckoning, and they gave him a fail beard, and they put him in a jumpsuit that made him look like a freaking Gopnik, and he was lame as shit.
Yeah, there's a creepy quality to him and Philip Seymour Hoffman that, for whatever reason, that makes them the standouts of the series. Anytime they, it's like a guy who wants to get control of a super virus, or this guy who wants to control artificial intelligence, or this guy wants nuclear domination.
Yeah.
That's just way less interesting than just a guy who has a personal problem with you and is going to kill you or your family or the people you love.
I'm gonna find her. I'm gonna hurt her.
Yeah, exactly. There's something just way more evil and personal about that. This one, it's more like the world is at stake and less about his team being in trouble.
Which, there's a new team member. I don't even know his name. He doesn't do anything. And it made me laugh. There's actually a point at the end of the movie where this new team member, he says, there's nothing for me to do in the server room. And I thought, that's correct.
Yeah.
There's nothing for you to do, period.
Yeah. We already have a team. We didn't really need to add another member to just kind of complicate things.
No, you could have thrown his ass away and given Paris more to do.
That being said, like, the callbacks and cameo characters that become supporting characters that you were talking about, I won't say, like, who it was, but I actually really enjoyed his character in this one.
Yeah, I'm not really adverse to them bringing him back, but can you do it in a more organic and less fan servicey, remember this kind of way? Do
Yeah.
it with less member berries.
Yeah, most of the dialogue revolves around, like, 30 years ago I did this, and this chain of events happened, which caused this to happen, and now I wouldn't be here without this thing. And it's, okay, stop. Let's get back on track, please. The performances are all pretty good, like usual.
Yeah. Say what you want about Mr. Cruz, but he's a dedicated man who gives his all to everything, and he does physical feats that I would never do. Like the final action set piece of him getting his ass on a plane and clinging to the wings and to the rudders and everything. No. I don't care how many safety harnesses you put on me. I'm not doing it. But Tom will. He'll do anything for your entertainment.
Yeah, you just kind of have to watch in awe and at the spectacle and the sheer audacity of it.
And he's 60.
Yeah, just watching
He doesn't have to do this.
watching a 60-year-old man cling to the wing of a plane that's flying, like, I don't know, 50 feet above the ground it's just ridiculous. Flying through ravines and like canyons and stuff like that. Just remarkable. And like the dedication to practical stunt work, it just couldn't be commended more.
Yeah, Simon Pegg is as good as he ever was, but I feel like he's underused in this one.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the case with most of the supporting team members.
Yeah, Haley Atwell was a ton of fun in the last one.
Yeah, she kind of takes the secondary character role in this one. There's some stuff that happened in the last one with one of the characters which I guess we won't really talk about, but I was surprised that there was no swerve or reveal or return of those characters. But yeah, Haley Atwell's great. If someone's going to fill that space, she's a great person to fill it. Ving Rhames is great. Not in the movie as much as some of the other people, but he's always fun to watch.
Yeah. There was another weird memberberry thing revolving around Shea Wiggum's character, Jim Phelps Jr. Remember that?
Oh, that went nowhere.
I think I know what this was about. So, Peter Graves played the character of Jim Phelps in the original Mission Impossible television series. So when they made the movie in 1996, they asked Peter Graves to come back and play Jim Phelps again, but he read the script and was like, "You made me the villain? I'm not doing this." So John Voight played him, and as you know, at the end of that movie, he gets annihilated in a subway tunnel.
Yeah.
So I think this was their way of doing a mea culpa and trying to redeem the Jim Phelps name.
Oh my god.
It's so stupid. And Peter Graves is long dead, so it's not like he's around to care.
Yeah, something about that actor and that character I also enjoy in this series. That was such a weird thing. And again, it felt like this was going to be the last one, so they had to give something for that character to do, some kind of final motivation to drive him.
And it's basically just an apology to Peter Graves.
But it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't really add much to his character. He already had a built-in conflict because he's a guy who goes by the book, and he's the rule follower, and Ethan Hunt breaks every rule there is and risks the fate of the world to save 2 or 3 people, every one of these movies. So he already has that built in, so you don't really need to add an extra motivation on top of it just to create some kind of extra drama or tension. It's already there. We don't need needless complications, and that's unfortunately kind of the biggest problem with this movie. It's just needless complication. As wacky and as over the top and as full of MacGuffins and crazy names as the series has been, it's mostly kind of like you said, it follows a simple formula.
Yeah.
And this one just is all over the place, and it's not until that first hour is over that it finally clicks, and it feels like a Mission Impossible movie again.
I think they got a little too big for their own good as they went along.
Yeah, it felt like you always run the risk of doing something like that. If it's the last one you plan to do, that your instinct is to go as big as possible or as small and intimate as possible to bring it back to the characters. I feel like maybe that should have been the play, even though I can't deny the spectacle of what this movie eventually turns into.
Yeah. And like we said, I do feel like the second and third hour do redeem the first. And I wasn't bored during that first hour. I was just it was tedious, and I was just get to it, get to the mission.
Yeah, we're so close to doing something. I feel it, it's coming, it has to be coming. Where is it?
And then when they do something, it's great, and it's fun to watch Tom do his thing and put himself at risk for our entertainment, and it pays off massively. So they clearly know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Even though I think they went a little overambitious.
Yeah.
So overall, a pretty satisfying film.
Yeah, I would say I liked it pretty good. I think by the time it wraps up, it's a pretty satisfying closer to the series. I like the way it pays off the characters. I like the way it pays off the history of the series, even though it does go a bit too far and it does get kind of cheesy and corny and, wink and nudge at the camera a little too often.
Yeah, just wish they had a better villain.
outside of 2, this has got to be the worst of the bunch, you think, right?
Of the villains?
Yeah, two's villain was awful.
Yeah, Dougray Scott, he was terrible. Miko Nickfist's villain in Ghost Protocol, it wasn't that he was bad, it's that he did nothing. He was barely
Yeah.
on screen.
Yeah, at least he had an actor playing.
Yeah, at the very least, you have Miko Nickfist, rest in peace, playing him, but
Yeah.
they did nothing with him. And it's like, we've seen John Wick, so we know what
Yeah.
that guy can do with
And
a villain.
like, nothing against this guy playing the character Gabriel, but the writing for this character and the way they wanted to portray him, they're like, this just wasn't it.
Yeah, maybe he's good in other things, but oh my god, he's boring in these movies. So, what is your final number rating on a scale of 1 to 10?
I was very, very worried during the first hour. I don't like to look at my watch during a movie, but, I would see the time every so often. I'm like, man, we're 30 minutes in, we're 40 minutes in, we're 50 minutes in. Like, oh my God, we're at the hour mark and the movie hasn't started yet. And then it finally started. And it was amazing for the rest of it. I'd probably settle at like a 7.
Yeah, that's exactly the same rating. I'm going to give it for exactly the same reason. That first hour was interminable, but then it finishes in spectacular fashion, and by the end of it, I was a happy camper. So, 7 out of 10. Good movie. Not great. Could have been.
I feel like this movie, like, it would be so easy to fix this first hour.
Yeah.
Like, 30 minutes chopped off of this movie, and I think you've got probably one of the best in the series.
Yeah, so that's the thesis statement. Get to the point.
Yeah.
So that's Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Definitely see it, but be prepared. That first hour sucks.